Some people disappear quietly. My sister didn't. She left a storm behind, and somehow it never stopped raining. I thought I'd made peace with the silence, with the beige walls, the stillness, the version of myself that never needed the spotlight. But when she came back, suitcase in hand, eyes full of stories she wouldn't tell, I didn't just open the door for her. I opened the door to something I'd buried a long time ago. And the worst part? I'm still not sure if she ever left. My sister always had everything. Since she was little, it was as if the world had been molded to fit her perfectly. She didn't ask, she received. I didn't run, I was carried. And when she smiled, it was as if the lights in the house became brighter. There was something about her that made people stop and look, and something in me that seemed invisible. I got used to watching. I stayed in the corner of the photos, outside the conversations, behind the half-open doors, listening to compliments that never had my name on them. And over time, I learned to exist in the interval between the scenes she starred in. It was easier that way, quieter. Until one day, years later, she reappeared. It was just any night. The kind of night where time seems to stand still and the silence in the house takes shape. It was cold. I remember the smell of the tea I prepared, the sound of the blanket dragging on the sofa, and the sound of the wheels of a suitcase cutting across the sidewalk. Clack, clack, clack. At the time, I didn't move. I listened, trying to understand if it was real, if that sound was really coming from my door or my head. I went to the window, slowly. The street was almost deserted, lit only by street lights that flickered from time to time. And then I saw it, a figure standing in front of my house, soaked, motionless, as if she didn't know if she should hit. My heart accelerated. For a second, I didn't recognize it. But there was something in that way of standing there, in that posture between arrogance and fragility, that was impossible to forget. She looked up and smiled, a small smile, tired, and yet dangerous. Knocked once, 2, 3. I opened the door, and there she was, Cassidy. "Hi, Claire. Can I come in?" I hesitated, not out of pride, not out of anger, but because there was something in the air, something that seemed to have come with her. A cold that wasn't from the wind, a presence that wasn't just hers. At that moment, I knew, although I still didn't understand why, that something had changed. And that by opening that door, I wasn't just getting my sister back. I was letting something in. Something that, to this day, I don't know if it came out. My name is Claire. I'm 33 years old. And I was never the protagonist of my own story. If you grew up in the shadow of someone who shines brightly, you might understand what I'm about to tell you. Or maybe not. Maybe you were the shine. And I was what the shine hides. The street where we grew up looked like it was drawn with a ruler. Houses with the same colors, the same gardens, the same families with the same rehearsed smiles. A neighborhood where even the birds seemed to sing more quietly, as if any excess could be annoying. Nothing was said clearly. The pains were wrapped in education. And the comparisons, oh, these came with a ribbon bow. Cassidy was 3 years younger, but it seemed to be born 3 times. A star that never needed to learn to shine. It already came that way. The girl with the golden curls, the medals, the wide smiles. She would walk into a room and immediately everything would focus on her, as if the world recognized her, as if she belonged on a stage where all the spotlights were always ready. And me? I was the break between the applause. I remember a scene. I was 14 years old. I had just returned from school with a certificate in my hands. Essay competition. First place. The topic was, what does it mean to belong to a place? Ironic, looking at it now. I ran up the stairs, my heart racing, my chest full. I wanted to show. Be seen. A second of belonging. My mom was in the room sewing Cassidy's graduation dress. It was light pink, with applications that glowed even in the dim lamplight. She didn't even look up. We'll see about that later, Claire. It doesn't get in the way now. There was no hug. No congratulations. Not even a glance. At that moment, I knew. I knew there were places where I would never fit. That there was a kind of brilliance that you can't earn. You're born with it. And I was the frame. The part that holds the image, but never appears in the memory. Cassidy, on the other hand, was the event. An electric, intense child, with a sharp tongue and a confidence that never wavered. Where I hesitated, she advanced. Where I thought, she acted. It wasn't bad. But she was never kind either. She didn't need to be. Over time, I learned to occupy the spaces left by her. Not to expect too much. Not asking for anything. Walking in silence through the corridors of our house, like someone walking through an exhibition where everything has already been decided. But there were moments, little fragments of time, when something different emerged. Sometimes when she would sleep next to me on vacation and hold my arm tightly. Or when I was sick and she brought me a glass of water without saying a word. In those moments, I saw another Cassidy. Minor. More raw. Almost human. And it was perhaps because of these crumbs of affection, these half-forgotten gestures, that I said yes when she knocked on my door so many years later. It wasn't empathy. It wasn't kindness. It was a remnant of a story that never finished telling itself. From a sister who I never knew if it was a snare or a trap. Now, looking back, I wonder if she was born that way. Or if we were all, me, her, my mother, pieces of the same broken puzzle. And maybe Cassidy was just the one who refused to fit in, because I learned one thing from her early on. Whoever shines too much also burns, and I've spent my whole life trying not to burn out. Cassidy walked in as if she had never left, wet, with her coat sticking to her body, her hair sticking to her face, and a suitcase that seemed to weigh twice as much as her body could carry. But what disturbed me was not the appearance. It was the look. A look that already came with rehearsed excuses, with half-finished stories, with an almost performative fragility. She passed me without waiting for an invitation, leaving trails of water on the floor. And along with it, the cold came in. A cold that wasn't just from the street. It was a dense void, a new silence, a type of discomfort that cannot be explained. It can only be felt. It's just for a while, I swear. I didn't say anything. I just closed the door. The first night was strangely quiet. She slept on the living room sofa, on her side, curled up, the TV turned on without sound, flashing blue reflections on the wall. From the hallway, I watched her shoulders shaking. She seemed to cry, but there was something about it that didn't seem sad to me. It was something else, something more calculated, as if every hiccup had a purpose. And yet I felt sorry. The next morning, she was more comfortable. Stirred the coffee as if it were routine, criticizing the sugar, mocking the mug I was using. I laughed out of politeness. But there were sharp edges to her words, phrases that sounded light, but carried something corrosive. Do you still live like this? With those beige walls and those sad cushions? I thought at 30 we'd already discovered what good taste is. Smiled. And she went back to drinking her coffee as if nothing had happened. In the days that followed, Cassidy took up space. First, she took some of my clothes, said she didn't have anything clean. Then she invaded the bathroom with her bottles of perfume, makeup scattered across the sink, the too sweet smell clinging to the towels. She started sleeping in my guest room as if she had a signed contract, changed the position of the furniture, even complained about the food I bought. Seriously, Claire, do you live on frozen food? It feels like you've stopped in time. She would talk to someone on the phone for hours, always locked in the bathroom. Voice low but firm. One name was repeated. Victor. And whenever the name came up, the intonation changed. It was more intense. Almost nervous. I started paying attention. One day, I noticed that my bank account had been debited by $2,400, a value that I did not recognize. I tried to track it. I contacted the bank. Nothing conclusive. But inside me, a certainty began to take shape. I confronted Cassidy late that afternoon, as she picked at her nails on the couch as if the outside world didn't exist. Do you know of any charges on my card? A large amount. Unknown. She didn't even blink. System error. It happens all the time. You stress too much, sister. System error. But it was the expression on her face that gave me goosebumps. A smile on the corner of his mouth. No guilt. No surprise. Cassidy had a gift. She knew exactly where to step, how much she could invade, how far she could go before you reacted. She's always lived like this, walking the fine line between what's acceptable and what's unforgivable, but always with heels that are pretty enough for no one to question. I wanted to believe it was paranoia, that I was exaggerating, but every day, a new crack appeared. My objects changed places. My perfumes disappeared. A connection at my work was interrupted by noise as if someone had tampered with the cables. Cassidy swore she didn't touch anything, but something was wrong. I started to feel watched in my own home, as if the air had changed density, as if I were occupying a space that was no longer mine. Cassidy took care, and I started to disappear. The last straw was not the money. Neither do the passive-aggressive comments. Not even the bathroom full of makeup and creams, which I've never seen. It was the lawyer. I was at work in the middle of a busy day when I got the call. The voice on the other end was firm, professional. A simple, direct name, Richard. Good afternoon, Claire. I represent Andrew Martins's family. Can we talk in person? Andrew, Cassidy's husband, or at least what was left of it. I agreed to meet Richard at the coffee shop near my house. He was already there when I arrived. Dark suit, expensive watch, a thin folder on the table. Your sister is involved in a delicate investigation, and unfortunately, her name is not the only one on the documents. I opened my mouth to deny it, but he opened the folder and pushed some copies towards me. Vouchers, statements, contracts. In at least 3 of them, my name, my signature, my data, forged signatures, open accounts, transactions with high values. Everything with my SSNI felt like I was falling into a bottomless hole. His voice continued speaking, explaining legal terms, possible consequences, protective measures. But I didn't listen anymore. Because only one phrase repeated inside me: Cassidy used me. I returned home in silence, stomach upset, heart racing, and one certainty: either I acted now, or there would be no turning back. I waited for her to arrive from the street. It came with bags from an expensive store, as if nothing was happening. She dropped her groceries on the kitchen table and picked up an apple. That's when I threw the documents in front of her. Do you want to explain this here? She didn't even pretend to be surprised. Are you going through my papers now? Those aren't your papers. They're mine. You used my name. You forged my signature. She shrugged as if I were complaining about a misplaced glass. You're exaggerating. It was just a bridge, a shortcut. Shortcut to what, Cassidy? To sync with you? Do you think I planned this? I just needed a way out. I was desperate. You were comfortable. Stealing my name isn't desperation, it's calculation. She dropped the apple into the sink and walked over, her eyes narrowed. You never understood what it was like to fight to survive. You always lived in that sad bubble of yours. This whole thing you call cheating, stealing, is what keeps some people alive. That's not life. It's parasitism. She laughed. Low, an almost mocking laugh. You know what's funny, Claire? Without me, you never would have had a story. You were a footnote. I gave you a plot. The silence that followed hurt more than any words. And even so, she came over and tried to hug me. Instinctively, I pushed. Cassidy slipped and landed with a thud on the kitchen floor. The sound was too loud to ignore. There was a moment when I thought she had passed out. But then she laughed again, the mouth cut, the eyes shining. You always wanted this, right? Seeing me on the ground? I got up without saying anything and went to the bedroom. I locked the door. I waited until the sound of her footsteps disappeared. The next day, she disappeared. No ticket, no message, no suitcase. As if it had never been there. But there was something. On the living room table, an envelope with my name written in hand. Inside, a single sheet. I'm part of you. Always have been. Always will be. The police were called. They registered it as voluntary disappearance. She had done this before, according to reports. A contact at Andrew's old office told me over the phone. Cassidy changed her name. Used false documents, left the state, nobody knew where. The case against me has been dropped. Direct evidence of involvement was lacking, but peace, it didn't come back. I changed passwords, I changed locks, I put cameras, I deactivated cards. But at night, the guest room still seemed occupied. The smell of her perfume, the same one from her adolescence, too strong, too sweet, sometimes came back out of nowhere. My mother still called me, but now it was different. She was fragile, Claire. So sensitive. You could have done more, I wanted to respond, scream, throw in her face that no one did more than me. But I just hung up, and I looked at the door of the room where Cassidy stayed, ajar, as if waiting for another visit. The days following the disappearance were silent, but not the comfortable silence that comes with routine. It was an acute silence, a type of absence that makes noise, as if Cassidy had left not just her things, but fragments of hers scattered throughout the house. I started to notice details, small ones, inconveniences, as if someone was trying to remind me that, even far away, she was still present. The kitchen lights started to flicker, always at the same time, 3:17. A coincidence, perhaps. But it was exactly the same time as the clock when I dreamed about the room where she stayed. The light on, the bed empty, and the lipstick on the mirror. You're not that different from me. I tried to ignore it, until the first message appears. On my cell phone, unknown number. Destroying a sister is like ripping a mirror out of your face. You never recognize yourself again. Blocked. Minutes later, I received another. Same style. She only fell because you hesitated. You remember. I remembered. We were 12 and 9 years old. Summer vacation. The aunt's house with that lake that seemed too calm. Cassidy insisted on playing on the edge. I said no. I said it was dangerous. She called me a coward, and I went. She slipped, fell, and sank. She hid her arms in the water, trying to surface. I froze. I only screamed when the gardener appeared and pulled her back. She vomited water, coughed, and then looked at me, a look that said it all. She knew I hesitated, and never forgave me for that. The messages continued, some written in ways that only someone who knew us very well could have written. Others were quotes about things only the two of us knew. Old things, secret, untouchables. One day, my mother showed up at my door. No warning, she looked around the house as if I were a visitor. As if she had the right. She called me Claire. The blood ran cold. When? 2 days after she disappeared. She said she was fine, but that you turned away when she needed it most. I closed my eyes for a second. She was laundering money under my name. What did you want me to do? My mother sighed, but she didn't respond. Cassidy was fragile, sensitive. You were always tougher, Claire. You were always colder. I let out a humorless laugh. No, Mom. I just learned not to beg for crumbs. She needed an audience, and you were always the most faithful. You're jealous of her. I was silent. Perhaps. She looked at me like someone looking at a stranger, a look mixed with judgment and pity. Then she left without saying goodbye. Hours later, I received a new message. Sometimes the memory comes back as a smell, as a sound. That night, the sound was water. I went to sleep early, but woke up with the distinct feeling of being watched. I looked around. Everything was in order. But there was something in the air. Humidity. As if someone had taken a shower and left the door open. In the hallway, the smell. Floral perfume with a woody background. J'adore Dior. The same one she wore at 15. I went to the guest room. The cold doorknob I spun, I entered. Nothing. But the bed sheet was wrinkled, as if someone had recently laid there. On the bedside table, a bottle of perfume, and inside the wardrobe, a brown envelope. No name, no sender, a letter. If I disappear, tell Victor he didn't win. Tell Mom she always used me as a showcase. And tell yourself you're not innocent, Claire. You never was. You wanted to see the castle crumble. I only accelerated the fall. The letter was hers, but the content, it was another type of scam. She accused me of wishing her ruin, and maybe there was a kernel of truth, because part of me did want to see the facades fall. The masks crack. The lights go out. I just didn't expect it to drag me along. After the letter, my mind went into a silent meltdown. I lived, ate, worked, but it was as if there was another version of me lurking in the corners of the house, watching everything with unblinking eyes. A version that waited for something to happen, and it happened. 3 sharp knocks on the door. It wasn't Mail. He wasn't a neighbor. It wasn't wind. I opened it. Nobody. But there was a red envelope on the floor. Inside, a small mirror. The kind of makeup with a delicate stained frame. And behind it, written in lipstick, "Let me come back." Even if it's just inside you. I threw the mirror away. But the phrase stuck. That night, I dreamed about Cassidy. We were in the kitchen of our childhood home. The sun was shining through the window, and the smell of warm bread filled the air. She hugged me from behind, a tight hug, almost suffocating. "You dropped me," she whispered in my ear. I woke up breathless. The clock showed 3:17. I got up shaking and went straight to the room where she stayed. the cold doorknob, the air still. I entered. Everything was the same. And at the same time, everything felt wrong. The bedsheet was now stretched taut. Too much. As if someone had done that with a precision that I would never have. The perfume bottle on the dresser was overturned. The closet open, and inside it, nothing. But when I closed the closet door, I saw my own reflection in the bedroom mirror. And behind me, for a second, I swear I saw someone. I turned around. Empty. I went down the stairs. I needed air. That's when I heard it. The sound of the piano, downstairs, coming from the living room. But I don't have a piano. Frozen, I leaned against the railing. I waited. The melody was familiar. Claire de Lune. The song Cassidy learned in college and played whenever she wanted to prove she was better than the rest of us. The music stopped. Total silence. I ran to the living room. No instrument signal. Nothing. But on the table, another envelope. Inside, a single sheet with an address and one word. Victor. The name gave me goosebumps. He had called me weeks before. Voice paused, mocking tone. Claire, I thought only your sister liked games? What do you want? To know if she left anything there. Documents, passwords. Cassidy was impulsive. She disappeared, and you should do the same. Gone, huh? Funny. She tried to call me yesterday. The call dropped, and since then, his name hasn't left my head. I returned to the room. I turned on the computer. I needed to think. Research, understand, but something stopped me. There was a new folder on the desktop. Shadow Zip, I clicked. Inside, videos. From me, sleeping, on different nights, from different angles. The frame came from inside the guest room, as if someone was there, observing. My hands were shaking. I called the police. They came, analyzed. They said there were no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints. No cameras captured movement. It could have been malware, remote access to your computer. You live alone, right? I could only respond with my head. But deep down, I knew. Cassidy was capable of anything, and I didn't need to be here for that. The next morning, I received another letter. No sender, no stamp, left inside my fridge. You think you took me out of your life. But Claire, I never left. Because part of me has always been you. I sat on the kitchen floor and cried. I cried like I had never cried before. Not out of fear, not even out of anger, but of recognition. Because in some twisted way, that was true. Cassidy was the mirror I denied my entire life. The part of me that I fought to hide, the chaos that I pretended not to have. And now, she was back. Not with a body, but with presence, with memory, with shade. I looked at myself in the hallway mirror, and I wasn't sure who was looking back. Today marks 6 months since Cassidy disappeared. The searches have been terminated. The case against me dropped. Victor was arrested for fraud and criminal association. It seems she wasn't lying about everything. My mother never called again. The last thing she said was, "You never understood what it was like to love your sister." But the truth is, I get it. More than she imagines. Loving Cassidy was like embracing a storm. Beautiful from afar, devastating on the inside. And yet, in me savory, maybe is deep part of me that one day would come different. That sister with trembling hands and distressed eyes was real. Today, the house is silent again. The guest room remains locked, But sometimes when I walk by there at night, I still smell the perfume, sometimes stronger, sometimes just a breeze. And I know it sounds crazy, but there are nights when it comes with something more. 3 knocks on the door. Always 3. I never open it, but I always go there. I place my hand on the latch. I stand still, in silence, and I think. If she knocks, again, will I open it? That's the question that haunts me. Not just for her, but for me. Because maybe what I'm trying to keep out also lives in here. Maybe she has always lived. And now, after everything, I want to hear from you. Have you watched this far? Same? Until the last full stop? So leave this sentence in the comments, let me come back, even if it's just inside you. This is our secret key. The password of someone who not only heard, but felt, from those who walked through the halls of this house with me, from those who at some point also asked themselves, what if it were me? Leave your theory in the comments. Do you think she's really gone? Or is it closer than it seems? And please, lock the door today, just in case.
If you made it to the end of this story, then you didn't just hear what happened. You heard the knock. You felt the cold. You saw the mirror. Comment she's still here if Cassidy's presence reached you too. And leave a mirror emoji. So I know you made it through the darkness with Claire. Every comment will be read. Every mirror remembered. If this story haunted you even a little, subscribe to Drama Chronicles, where the secrets no one dares to tell finally have a voice.